Welcome into another edition of Cover One Live. We are obviously live on YouTube right now and across all social media platforms. I'm joined again by Kevin Masseri. Morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing today on this beautiful Sunday?
Fantastic, man. It'd be a lot better if there is some football on, but you know what?
Absolutely.
We'll make do and talk some football. It was a busy week. I'll start off by saying, we lost a couple of our team members this morning. Nate and John aren't going to be able to attend, so. But, we'll keep going. The show's got to go on, right, Kevin?
Absolutely. The show moves on.
So I want to start off with, kind of going over just some general thoughts on, the front office. And they've made some great hires so far. And they're not done yet for sure. But, they brought on a pretty good and experienced staff. What are your thoughts overall?
I think the staff has a lot of actually, medium tier media and national media have said it's an all-star staff by most accounts. A lot of times you have developmental scouts and developmental admin members of your team. We're putting together guys with 20 plus years of experience. You got from Shane, you got to Gain, and then these guys. You got Hickey, who's been a previous GM of the Dolphins. You got Boyd and Dawson. So the staff is it's looking really good. You got a lot of power players there, and you're bringing a lot of years of experience in what's gone right, what's gone wrong. So. I don't think you could ask for anything else from a finished staff or almost finished staff.
Right. They're probably about 75% or so complete, but from the top down, number one, experience. These are guys that have been in the league for many years, have, a really good tree as far as, where they've learned and who they've learned under. As far as the tree goes, and we're looking at them right now and the scouts and whatnot. Who's your favorite hire so far? Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. I like Brian Gain. I think he's helped build that Houston roster from the ground up, and they were awful. They have quarterback problems, and they still do. But he's built a roster that's able to compete, make the playoffs, be competitive, and built one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, I agree. He's my favorite hire so far, and he's come up through the ranks, especially in our division. He knows the atmosphere within the AFC East, the environment of in Buffalo. So he knows the landscape of the division, and I think that's really important, especially when it's been dominated by the Patriots for so many years.
Exactly.
I like who he's learned under. He's a former assistant GM. He helped out Jeff Ireland, who was a Parcells disciple when they were in Miami. And yeah, you mentioned it. He helped build a great defense in Houston. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I hope he didn't have anything to do with that quarterback situation." No, I wouldn't put that all on him. I'm sure him and his scouts were the ones that evaluated Osweiler, but they're not the ones that land those contracts and drop those contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't. It's as we all know, especially as Bills fans, it's a really tough position to get right. First of all, second of all, to be as successful as they were and have a void there, that kind of shows me that if we're going to roll with Tyrod, who's better than their quarterback situation is in Houston, you can do good things with that type of front office. So obviously you need to get the quarterback position right. There's no doubt about that. But with a guy like Gain, he's done it before, and he's been mildly successful. He's ready to take the next step. But he's obviously overseen by Bean. So, there's checks and balances there, in my opinion. Right. There's not just one guy that's going to say, this is my quarterback, I'm paying him $20 million, and we're going to move on to this guy. But I really like what we have to offer with the way the structure is going out, and you have a lot of different opinions in there. So, and Gain overseeing most of it, and then obviously above him is Shane. So,
right, and from Gain on down, everyone has experience, but everyone is looking to move up. And that's what's exciting. The coaches in this organization, as soon as they brought in this regime, they always stress competition. That was on the field, and you can see it off the field because these are all guys that have interviewed for GM positions.
Exactly.
And guys that want to expand their resume, and that kind of hard work and competition in the front office, along with on the field, I think is very important. So that's that their overall theme about this front office right now is everyone wants to move up, and everyone wants to sit in the chair that's above them. So I think that type of competition in the front office is also just as important as it is on the field.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, the one thing I think you can see that Bean is showing to his staff and allowing for is growth. So he brought these guys over with building something fresh and new and building this all-star executive staff. So I've read. But I think that's within mind that, hey, you come on my staff, you get all this experience from all these great people. The next thing you know, you're on the short list for the next GM job that opens. I mean, that has to be the sale. You don't just leave Houston in a similar role. You don't just leave Miami in a similar-ish role, or some of the other scouts who left in similar roles. You don't just do that to move to Buffalo or to make maybe a small buck. You're moving there for a long term to know that, like, I'm up the chain, and with this staff, I'm only going to grow my resume and I'm be part of this. That's the only way he was able to get some of these guys.
Right, and a guy like Brian Gaine, he leaves Houston not just for an opportunity to help a rebuild, and maybe the story was he's a New York guy, but to get out of the shadow of Rick Smith, because that GM, he's done a decent job there in Houston too. And I mean, I don't know if he's even on the hot seat for that matter. I mean, he's probably gonna be there for a while, so maybe he also left to get out of the shadow of Rick Smith.
Yeah.
And there was also rumors I read on the internet that maybe Gaine has a little more control, or has some kind of more say, I should say, on the roster and who they bring in and whatnot. So, because he's well respected across the league, everyone knows that. So maybe that was another reason why he left Houston.
Absolutely, to come be a part of like a younger staff. Like, I think the average age is by far one of the youngest for an executive staff in the NFL. So you're bringing that new approach. You're bringing that ability to probably analyze data, the ability to do what's best around the draft boards and think of numbers. And I think there's a lot of analytics and a lot of new school thinking in this front office, and less of just like, oh, I want to do that because I have a gut feeling, like less Buddy Nix type of stuff. So
right.
I think you're going to be a part of that. I've read that it's kind of a new school approach to building a front office, and the Bills are kind of out in front of it for once, which is for us very interesting to see.
Definitely. So we're going to cover the front office a little more in more detail later on, once it's complete. So we just want to touch upon a few of the topics there as far as the front office and how it's being shaped, because it's pretty exciting, and I think everyone across the league has noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So we'll move on to OTAs, Kev. Obviously they finished up the first phase of their OTAs, and what was your overall opinion on the first few days of practice?
Yeah, it looked like, from what I was able to read and watch, they were really, going at it. They were, hustling. They were making it a little busier than a normal OTA. And, it could be just, new coach trying to, kind of show who he is. But it did seem like, they were getting in some good reps, and a lot of the rookies were getting their feet wet within the veterans. So I like the way he runs things. He, McDermott basically came out and said Rex Ryan ran a soft unit. So
I know, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. And, so OTAs are important to him. He doesn't have a lot of time to install his new stuff, especially before training camp. And this is a big time period to show who you are as a player. This is going to set the depth chart. And a lot of people are like, oh, there's no pads, there's no tackling, there's no lineups. To me, it's installs, man. It's learning the systems. It's putting yourself on the depth chart and getting yourself a foot up, when you go into those, those brutal July practices.
Right. And I mentioned earlier about competition, on and off the field. And that's the first thing that came up after the first couple of days, is the competition amongst players on the field. And that was between, our first round pick and second round pick, Zay Jones matched up versus Tre'Davious White. And here's a clip from the OTAs here.
Coach had let me know that I was going to go against Tre'Davious, just to get that good competition. Not saying the other guys aren't there, but Tre'Davious is a proven guy. That's why they was taken in the first round, and just good to go against him and get that competition.
I mean, I was excited to see that. Just put the pressure on those guys, and put the onus on them to step up, because they're going to be playing big roles this year. Hopefully, I know Zay, was a little banged up after a few days there, but. What were your thoughts on that competition? That's good to see, right, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting, compared to the opposite, we were kind of putting them against, less experience or less talent, I should say, and, not really getting the most out of each player. Here you're going, dog for dog, you're going pound for pound, and, you're going to bring out the best in these guys. It's going to bring in the competition. There's nothing more you can do at this point of the year to bring out, these guys' talents, and, line them up against the first round pick, line them up against the second round pick, and see what happens. They should be matched up together for many, many, many years, at least 5+. So it is good to get him acclimated early, and might as well put him up against the best player he can.
Right, and he, the knock on Zay Jones was competition. Oh, the
Exactly.
competition he played against. I'm sorry, from all accounts, for people that were at OTAs, they said Zay was not only catching everything, which was no surprise, but he rose to the occasion and was one of the more impressive players at OTAs.
Yeah, and he definitely was. And then if you talk about the other second round pick in Deion Dawkins, one of the most impressive things I was able to read about how well he's able to play left tackle. That's a really underrated trait to be able to do, day one out of college and a second round pick. So if there's anything that ever happens with, Glenn this year, who knows how this offensive line can line up. You have a lot of talent there, and Dawkins only adds to that. So being able to have a really talented right tackle, left tackle swing combo, and then having Glenn as well, I mean, you're in good shape there on the offensive line.
Right. And, I did see that he did struggle at first, but, once, yeah, I mean, that's going to happen, that speed of the game. It's a lot different, from going, playing at Temple and whatnot, but he'll get his legs under him. And you know what? They did sign, that's part of the news this week, was that they did sign the draft picks. And, it's good to see that it's so much different nowadays than it was, of years past, where the contracts were such a big thing. You had a lot of holdouts and whatnot. To see these guys immediately get in there playing and practicing, I just love to see that.
Absolutely. And then, basically for me, Dawkins has, really quick feet, and he's got a really good backstroke. So to me, I like him. I think he's going to develop nicely. He's got to get used to leverage and get used to the speed rushers. But he's not just going to be your guy that, pulls out his arms and tries to knock you down. He actually has some agility. So I'm interested to see how this line turns out. And that was one of the biggest things I wanted to see the line up. And I forgot. I actually did forget Cordy Glenn was actually coming off of his injury. So
so there's no rush to just shift him over to the right side yet.
Yeah, exactly. Keep him in his most natural position that he's been playing, and then figure out what to do come camp. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in the linebacker position too, with Reggie being cleared, which a lot of people didn't even know that day would come. So that's another position group to me that I think they're going to put their best three guys on the field easily, whether it's, and Leslie Frasier came out during his OTAs and said, OTA conference and said, there's a good chance that, Preston and Reggie are going to be on the field at the same time.
Yeah, we're actually going to cover that here in a little while. But I did want to, I mentioned everyone was signed. And so I wanted to kind of show, some clips from, the press conferences, which I'm going to show later, but, just some of the reactions from OTAs.
I'm knowing what I'm doing now. I know what my help is. I know what some of the linebackers are doing. I know what the nickel and the safeties are doing. So if I feel like I continue on that road, just knowing what everybody else does on the field, that'll make my job so much more easy. So
you heard Trey White there, and that's the thing I loved about him when I was watching film on him. He always knows where his help is. That's so important, especially in zone defenses. You want to carry that receiver through your zone and pass him on to the next zone over. And he played a lot in the slot. And so having that, not just zone awareness and spatial awareness, but awareness of where your help is, so that, there's no gray area in between zones, so that everything is, tight. That's an important trait and something that it takes many years for most players to actually learn and improve on. So
exactly.
It was definitely good to hear from him on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Sam writes in our box, like, how long do you think before the team plays a much different style of football than what we've seen? Kind of what Eric's alluding to over there. I don't think very long. I think immediately, they shift back to more of an aggressive 4-3 style of, going 110% and not giving up. We saw a lot of give up. A lot of people think it's like a buzzword, like not giving up, but we saw that a lot last year, where the players just kind of like, I don't like this scheme. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to kind of show my coach up, or kind of show that we shouldn't be doing certain, scheme things. And I don't think you see that this year. I think you see everyone on the same page. I think you see people going 110% like Kyle Williams does. And I really think you see a different breed of football, definitely on the defensive side of the ball.
No doubt about it.
As soon as training camp. So
right, and especially up front, now these guys just get to attack, and that's something that they were able to do under Jim Schwartz. They're not doing a rush contain role like they did under Rex Ryan. So
exactly,
they're able to attack and get at the quarterback. So that's definitely something that I'm sure everyone's excited about.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
In that meeting room and on that defense.
So Sam, not long before we see a different style of football. How many wins does that immediately equal? I can't really say, but I can say that you will see an aggressive style of players giving it all and throwing it all out there for Coach McDermott and proving that they're hard-nosed football players. I mean, buzzwords, but there's no other way to put it. That I think you start seeing that as soon as humanly possible. So, and then Deontay, don't worry, we'll get to your quarterback question here in a moment.
And it's bringing it back to competition because we're gonna have a lot of young guys, especially on the defensive side, coming in and vying for spots, but it's on the offensive side too. And some of the news this week was in regards to our front office personnel mentioning that everyone's got to earn a spot. And that includes, Tyrod Taylor. It's not just going to be handed to him. That was a big topic this week. And,
it was.
To me, I think it was a little overblown. I think that you had mentioned coach speak. I think that kind of plays into that, but we'll call it front office speak. I do think that was a little overblown, but let's take a look here of Nathan Peterman from an interview this week. And all this footage you can find it on buffalobills.com. So if you want to go see the full footage of OTAs or these press conferences that we're showing, just go ahead and go onto their site. And I mean, obviously it's all there, but take a listen.
When Sean McDermott talks about competition everywhere, and he said, you compete with everybody, do you feel that way? Do you feel right away? I know it's one day in, but that you can be in the competition right away for a first string, second string, whatever it happens to be for this team?
I think that's always got to be any QB, any player on this team. That should be their mentality, is they should go compete. So I'm trying to help the team as much as I can. So whatever way I can do that, I want to go be the best I can be and try to pick things up as quickly as I can and play the best that I can.
So you heard Peterman there, and we talk about coach speak. Well, that's player speak, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I like Peter. I think I'm on record here and, pretty much anywhere that I said it. I think Peterman's our number 2 quarterback come training. I mean, as soon as the end of training camp. So will that come to fruition? Not sure. I could change my tune once I see him actually play competition here. But I really do think that he was chosen by this staff and, previous to Bean coming in and Gain and Shane and, et cetera. McDermott said he had a plan, and I think that part of this plan is Peterman being the number 2 quarterback, in my opinion. So
no, I mean, I think he should be in the competition, and that's what you want to hear from your quarterback. That's what you want to hear from a player. As far as what spot, or whether it be 2 or 3, either way, we know he's going to make going to make the team, and he's going to push the other 3 quarterbacks. I don't know how much he'll push Tyrod as a starter.
Not much,
but not much, especially considering Tyrod. I mean, what they've committed to him. And, he knows this offense. So.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, I mean, kind of getting back into Deontay's question of, do we see Tyrod excelling? Do you think the front office sees that? Absolutely. Like, I think we said it on our last podcast that if this front office, we didn't have one at the time or an old one that got fired, if this coaching staff didn't see that in Tyrod, he would have been gone. Like, Sean McDermott decided to keep him on, and Rick Dennison loves him. There's no doubt about it. There's no questions. Sean McDermott likes him at least. Rick Dennison loves him. So as long as our offensive coordinator is employed and we're moving the ball and we're winning football games, or at least some football games, you're going to see Tyrod Taylor stay on. And I think at least for the short term, in terms of a year or two, I think he gets more than just this season personally. If we draft a rookie next year high, I think that Tyrod starts next year for most of the year until he starts losing. So I think he'll excel in this offense. I think there's a lot of move motions and a lot of different lot of schemes that Dennison puts in that he's excited to work with a moving quarterback. He said it in his press conference that, Tyrod is fully his guy. TJ Yates knows the system, so he's not too concerned with giving him too many reps. And Peterman's right there, probably going to take the job from Jones and push Yates to get on the field.
No, I agree with you. And it's one of those things, you have a young guy like that coming in, you want him to compete. I mean, and he's also a better fit and, than I believe Cardale Jones. So, and we've covered this, already, but it's going to be one of those competitions that, we got to watch closely in camp. And, if everyone's healthy and they're out there competing, I mean, you're elevating everyone's game is elevating, and competition it's number one when it comes to teams. So I like to see that. I kind of want to shift back to Zay Jones real quick because
Sure.
He did get banged up. Does that worry you? I know it's only May, but does that worry you?
Yeah, we got a couple questions in already about Zay Jones I see in the chat box, and I'm always on the side of it doesn't bother me. I don't immediately sound the alarm on May 18th or whatever date May 19th, whatever day he got hurt or was announced that he got hurt. To me, a knee sprain, if it was anything more serious, I was just talking about this with some people yesterday, and if I think it could have been a slight pre-existing injury, if you're going to ask me, like, I don't know where you get a knee sprain from. I guess you got cut wrong. But if it was anything more serious, the team cannot hold that in. There's no way with their new PR, with their new front office, with the new coaching staff, that they're going to hide an injury from your second round, top 40 pick. I don't see it. I don't think it's too serious. I think he could miss some valuable time, with some of the remaining OTAs, but I cannot see him out longer than a month. I can't see it. So
it is kind of odd that it's not a day-to-day, it's a week-to-week injury. That kind of caught me when this initially came out, that they labeled it that. But, if it was some type of, hyperextension or, I don't know how it exactly happened. If he went down to the ground, hit his knee off the turf or something like that, it swells up pretty bad. And let's just hope that's where it ends. That is just a knee sprain. But that was kind of odd to see initially that it was labeled week to week, but especially during OTAs, I know it's early, but this is an important time to a certain extent because it's install. You're installing. That's what they're doing the first, 3 days of OTAs. Exactly. You're installing your base offense and defenses, stuff that they'll see again, but this is that time where he needs to start, working with Tyrod and everyone else in that, receiver group and kind of figuring out roles. And that's part of OTAs too, is the evaluation, what roles will Zay Jones fit? What role will, Philly Brown fit? So is, it is important to a certain extent. Yes. The good thing about this injury, it is May. So
yeah, it's May. To me, I think I would sound the alarm more in August. But think about this. He's got 3 months to even get to the August date. So unless it's a full-blown tear of something, something major too, I don't see it as worrisome. I see the missed time as a little bit of an issue. I don't see the injury as that big of an issue. So though he can be there with install, so he can be learning his playbook like he has to anyways. He can be working hand in hand with coach and, his old wide receivers coach. So he has a lot of opportunity to make sure that isn't very serious. I don't think the injury, I guess to answer the question, I don't think the injury is very serious. Now, if it comes out in a week that he tore his ACL, there's no way any of us knew that. But I don't think that they can go from knee sprain to torn ACL, MCL, PCL. Like that just doesn't line up. Like, you lie. Like, the new PR staff, if it's a sprain, I think they're being safe by saying week to week rather than, like you said, day to day, because OTAs are week to week. So that makes sense to me that he might miss OTA session, OTA session, OTA session, rather than saying day to day and everyone asking him every single day, where's Zay Jones? You can say, well, in our original statement, we said 2 to 3
That's
weeks.
a good point. Yeah, that's actually a great point and a technicality, just so that, hey, get off my back, stop asking every day. It's going to be a few weeks.
We said week to week. We're not rushing it. We saw what happened with Sammy last year. We gave 2 aggressive of estimates. Now we're going to give 2 lenient of estimates conservative estimates by saying week to week. I don't think it's week to week. Being in sports myself and being around physical trainers and medical staff, like week to week is such a wide range, and that could be like for the simplest sprain, like that can heal in 10 days. So
definitely. And we have a question in regards to Zay and his role in the offense. We are asked, does Zay move into the slot in 3 receiver sets? I think that's definitely a good spot for him. I know he, in his last season, he played in the slot, 30% of the time, and he produced similar numbers to Corey Davis. Yep. So I think his traits, in those 11 personnel looks, I think they fit perfectly for a slot receiver role, and especially, over the middle and running those option type routes in the short to intermediate area and, finding those zone windows. I think he's a perfect example of a slot player in those 11 personnel sets. So you agree with that, Kev, or what other role do you see him playing? Kev, you there?
Yeah. I'm here.
What other role do you see Zay playing besides the slot? Do you see him? Do you have him penciled in as the number 2 right now?
Yeah, I do. I have him penciled in as the number 2. So in 3 wide receiver sets, I could see him jump in. I think we'll see that in certain personnel packages, but I think he stays outside for the most part as he's learning that position inside and out, and will most likely be successful there. So that's where I see him. But yeah, in 3 wide receiver sets, I could see him jump in, but I'm still a fan of Philly Brown there. So I think he comes in as at least our day 1 starting third receiver. But as we know, there's a lot of competition right now with that wide receiver group. So I think it's an opinion of all of us to see what kind of happens as we hit, training camp.
Right. And, the good thing about this, the OTAs, is that we got to, hear Rick Dennison and Leslie Frasier, up at the mic and kind of go over some of their philosophy and answer some questions from the media. And I just want to go over some of his philosophy and what he said this week to the media.
I love a balanced approach, but we are playing in the AFC East. I mean, there's going to be some bad weather games where you have to run the ball well. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And I think we will. I have confidence in our system. I have confidence in the players that we have in that locker room. But once they're up in there, you take your shots over their head. We'll be successful running it, and when they're up there trying to stop the run, we'll take our shots down the field.
So you heard Dennison there, and this is something we've alluded to on the podcast, and that's, the carryover. When a new staff comes in, they want to see what the players do well, what schemes, exactly, what concepts, and just individual traits of these players. I mean, that's the thing that he's been doing ever since he's been hired. He's just been evaluating talent and what he can do with said talent. So I don't think anyone's surprised to hear that the run game philosophy, it's not going anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's quote unquote a hard pill to swallow to hear, like, the run game being, everyone keeps saying, and I've had discussions on Twitter about, like, how much does the weather matter, and, like, if it matters, like, everyone's saying you have to run the rock in the AFC East because of our bad weather division. And I'm of the opinion of the running game that it is important. I think that when you have Tom Brady, I think more what no one wants to say is when you have Tom Brady in your division, you're trying to control the game. You're trying your best to keep him off the field. You're trying to limit minutes that are played, and definitely minutes that the Patriots offense is able to be on the field, like the Falcons did in the Super Bowl. That's what they did. So yes, they have a better quarterback than us. But I do think there's some credence to that. You can win running the football. I think people in Buffalo are a little jaded by it because we've gone first back-to-back years and not even made the playoffs. I do think that generally can equal a winning formula. It just last year, our defense had some terrible statistical categories, and the year prior, we really weren't, as well. We really weren't strong in specific defensive categories, and regressed as 2016 approach. So I think that you have a strong running game. You have a moving quarterback that plays a role in it, and he said he's going to take his deep shots over the top as well. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah, here's a little more on his philosophy.
Years, and then 14 of the previous 15, I was with Mike Shanahan. And Alex Gibb taught me the run game. All of that goes together. I mean, you have to go that together. My philosophy is kind of what I've developed over the years, which is very similar to those. I don't know how much it's going to change. Certainly, there's a few things that we're doing that we've watched on film that we didn't do over the last couple of years. Some things that they did here that Juan and I have talked about, run game particularly, that they've done very well, that we're going to try and carry over.
So another topic that came up, we'll just roll through this then. Another topic that came up is, if Tyrod is a right fit or not, and you touched upon it. I mean, he's a perfect fit for this offense, right?
Yeah, definitely. He was chosen by the new staff to stay and run it. I mean, he'd be long gone. Like, I guess that's the thing that a lot of fans or people don't connect, and then even in the media, like, he'd be gone if they didn't think he could run this offense or want to run this offense. Although everyone's like, well, what are the better options? Doesn't matter. They would have picked a different option if he wasn't the best fit for this specific scheme. So
right. Yeah, he's a perfect fit, and he can carry out those keepers. They call them QB keepers. So anytime he runs that wide zone or outside zone run, you're going to see Tyrod Taylor carrying out his bootleg, because as Dennison had mentioned in one of his press conferences, he wants to, make sure that every play looks the same so that the defense has to defend everything on every single play. So you're going to see him carry out those QB keepers. And so when he does, pull the ball out of, Shady McCoy's belly and go to those bootlegs and get on the perimeter for the passing game, it's all going to look the same. So, he's going to be able to do a lot of things on the perimeter. So that's good to see. I'm excited to see him in this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, it brings me back to the days of high school when, you hear, QB keeper, whoever your quarterback is on the keeper. But I mean, it's true. I mean, it's effective, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at this. So you have an offense that builds to his strengths. You're going to run this. You're going to have the opportunity. And I think also what Dennison liked with him was his ability to go over the top and his strength, on the, on the verticals. So his strength, on the outside of the field, everyone always talks about the middle of the field, but let's talk about his strengths on the outside of the field and his ability to drop it in on deep routes. That's going to play a big role into what Dennison's running.
Right. No, you're right. And I just think, I've said it before, I think Tyrod is probably one of the best athletes to ever play in this system. And it's scary what he can do with his legs. There has not been a guy that has played in this system that has had more athletic talent overall. I mean, he doesn't have the best arm that's ever played in the system, but I mean, I'm talking, explosiveness with his legs and his arm, because he does have a decent deep ball. And I know he regressed a little bit last year, but a lot of that had to do with the receivers that he was thrown to. And, they were trying to help him in his drop back game and trying to work the short to intermediate area a little more. More outside the numbers, but it's something that, having a guy like Tyrod in this offense, it's and an offense that he kind of knows. So it's a pretty smooth transition going from Greg Roman and Anthony Lynn's system to Rick Dennison's system.
And Dennison's even said, like, I'm incorporating some of those things that they did right over there. Like, not everything was wrong. In his own words, Dennison said, I'm going to take some of these run concepts that they had, and I'm going to put them in my system, the ones that worked in the stretch run zones and stuff like that. So you can say that if he's able to do that, the system's similar. And I think that, Dennison's only going to expand on it and have the ability to do different things that, maybe, Anthony Lynn wouldn't let Tyrod do.
All right. So we'll move on to the defensive side. And Leslie Frasier, again, he was allowed to be in front of the mic again. And so a lot of people criticized bringing in Leslie Frasier, defensive coordinator, just because of his prior years as a coordinator. But I mean, he's led some really good defenses. He does get, a word that's associated with his defenses, or that he's kind of conservative. He does play more of a cover 2 shell, but we do expect him to be running McDermott's defense, right?
Absolutely. And I see the chat questions about the defense, so we're getting into some of those now. But yeah, I do think he runs pretty much what McDermott asks him to, and him being kind of like running that 4-3, kind of like that. I don't know if you want to say, we'll say conservative for now. I think that allows him to put in McDermott's elements and not be like Rex Ryan, where he's got to do things a certain way or make sure it's done like this. He's able to take what McDermott asks him and teach his style of defense as well. So it just lines up. His defense is, I've seen Frasier run a pretty vanilla defense. I watched actually those Minnesota teams a lot for some reason. And he does run a more conservative. He does in part does run a more conservative defense, but similar to Schwartz actually, where it can still be very effective. And then you add in some of the Sean McDermott elements to the 4-3, and I think he's the perfect teacher of what McDermott's trying to do.
No, I do too, and he's a really good coach. He's a good teacher, and I think just especially based on the roster that we have now. I mean, we are weak at a few positions, and one of those positions, depth-wise, is safety. Mm-hmm. And so, having the type of style and defense that Frasier is used to playing, I think that'll help us on the back end because we have Micah Hyde, yes, and we have Jordan Poyer, who we brought in, and Poyer is still relatively unknown as far as playing experience goes.
Really is. Yep.
Yeah, and Hyde, to that point, he's used to be playing in the slot, so As far as deep safeties, single high safeties, or even, two high safety looks, these are guys that aren't particularly, experienced at doing that. They play different roles. Now, I'm not saying that they can't do it, but just based on playing experience, we're used to seeing these guys play different types of roles.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that plays into a role too with Circle the Wagons asked, how do you think Shaq will do in the new D? He ran it at Clemson and he was a beast. I mean, I agree. I think that Shaq as a rookie wouldn't come out and really say much, and I wouldn't have either. But basically, between him and Jerry Hughes, you have enough there to like with going back to 4-3 alone with anyone's 4-3. But in this specific 4-3, yeah, I mean, I think both him and Hughes are in for a great year. I don't think you saw us address the defensive line much at all, mainly because of how well Shaq fits, and that was more Rex Ryan's fault. But I really think you see a pure 4-3, and I think you see them both excel at getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Shaq, I'm still on the fence about as far as his explosiveness. I know he ranked up there as far as he did, but I didn't see enough last year. But a lot of that has to do with obviously the scheme. But he missed a lot of time, to get up to speed, play speed. It takes a while, especially for a rookie. And so you factor that in, and I'm still on the fence about him, but I'm not worried about him. And you look about our depth on the defensive line, it's actually pretty good, especially inside. I know, Ryan Davis, I did an article on him and breakdown, and I do think he's going to play a big role this year, because he can rush from outside in the wide 9. He can rush from the interior in those very same looks. He's very good on stunts and decent, decent change of direction. So I think he'll be a really good role player. I mean, but as far as interior defenders, I think we're pretty stacked at that position.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't know if people are reaching or trying to get clicks or content, but like I've been reading so much of like our lack of defensive line depth. Like, do you just make that up? Like, what defensive line do you see that has more depth? I think people confuse depth and maybe like age and starting material. I don't know where the disconnect is with the word depth, but it really like gets to me sometimes when someone's like, we don't have great defensive tackle depth. I'm like,
right.
We have 2 really good at least Pro Bowl starters, no matter what you think of either of them, and their in their age or whatever, or their off the field problems in Darius's case. But behind him, you have, to me, you just drafted a 3rd-round guy. He wasn't particularly great, but neither was John Miller year 1, who really improved year 2. And I expect the same type of thing from Washington year 1 to year 2. And then behind him, you have a few players there as well that I don't know what team you're talking about that has like 4 defensive tackle starters. Is that like even a real thing, Eric, in your opinion? Like what's the issue with people thinking we have a lack of defensive line depth?
I honestly don't know. I mean, like I said, I think, as far as edge rushers goes, I could see that. I can rationalize that. But I also think that most fans don't know of, guys like Ryan Davis and whatnot. So, and interior wise, I mean, yeah, as Adolphus Washington, the one thing he did well coming out of Ohio State was rush the passer. Yeah, and he can do that obviously from both interior positions. So to have a guy like that with that size, that length, and that pass rush ability, that's actually very good, good thing to have. And then another guy that doesn't get talked about is Jarrell Worthy. I mean, another guy that can rush the passer. So interior wise, I don't see, there's no narrative there as far as, lack of depth. Now, edge wise, I could see, some of the, the issues or narratives that will arise in regards to that.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'd like Ryan Davis more than the normal person. So that might be where some of my depth's like not as big of a deal to me. And then the versatility of Lorenzo Alexander as well. So to me, I don't see the depth issues. Sure, I would love another 3rd or 4th defensive end on the roster. But like when you're putting together a roster, as Brandon Beane knows, like I don't think you can have, like, that's one of the hardest positions in the league in general to have starters at. I don't know that you can have like Shaq Lawson on your depth chart, or Jerry Hughes, Shaq Lawson, Jerry Hughes. So it's an interesting debate both ways. I see the depth issue, and I think that came out of the last 2 years under Rex Ryan that really like kind of blew up. But I don't really see the depth issue as like a major problem of why we're losing games. I think we saw a lot of injuries, and by the time we're putting on like Justin Hunter, people are like, we don't have any depth. But well, yeah, I mean, if you face 2 to 3 injuries at a position group, you're going to run into some issues, no matter what position group that is. Maybe outside of Seattle has some, quality starting depth at certain positions, but outside of that, you don't really look at Green Bay, who gets eaten up every year, and they're playing like receivers at running back. I mean, I think the depth issue can be over talked about. And getting us back to defense, Mr. French wants to know if you think we'll be running more cover 2 or cover 3 looks. Eric, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's going to be both. Honestly, we had mentioned Leslie Frazier, and his background is more of, cover 2. So, and McDermott wants to play more cover 3. I think it's a little bit of both. And you're going to see a lot of those 2 high safety looks where, they do pattern matching, where based on the routes of the receivers, it could turn from zone to man. So I think that's something we should expect and prepare ourselves for, because let's face it, I've said this before, we're not totally fit for a cover 3 zone yet. We're just not. So I do think that we're going to play a lot more, pattern matching and man coverage than what Carolina did the last couple of years. So until we get guys, in the second level and third level that can, play those zone coverages.
Yeah, Mr. French. Like, I love the name, by the way. Eric, I don't know. Do we have the safety play for a lot of cover 3 looks at this point?
And that's what worries me. We had mentioned it. Jordan Poyer and Hyde aren't guys that have played that single high look that often. So don't get me wrong. What's going to happen is Leslie Frazier he's going to show that 2 high look, and he's going to rotate, down into cover 3 looks. But it's not something that they can show a lot pre-snap, because if they do, I mean, our corners, could get torched, because we don't know, as far as center fielder goes, we don't really know if any of those guys have that range.
Yeah, I'm on pace with that. I'm probably even more so on that end of like limited cover 3 look. So, I mean, Frazier came out in his press conferences and basically, raved about Hyde and all of his versatility. Does that mean we're going to see a ton of cover 3 looks? I don't know. We'll have to wait till training camp to fully answer that question, Mr. French. But in my opinion, I see more cover 2 looks, but we'll and then a lot of more cover 2 man looks. So we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, they did say they're gonna have to be creative. So expect a little bit of everything. I don't want to pigeonhole this coaching staff scheme.
Exactly. And Frasier's
gonna play it all.
Yeah.
They're gonna play it all, and they have to. Especially, we had a question last week about, how are we gonna change. We can't play a lot of zone versus Tom Brady, right? It's like, no, you're right there, but it's got to be a lot of combo coverages, and you got to switch it up. I mean, this is NFL. You can't just play vanilla cover 3. Even cover 3 nowadays is not even as prominent as most people think. A lot of it's cover 3 match, where it does turn from cover 3 to man. So I don't want to pigeonhole.
Yeah, it can turn to man pre-snap too. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize the like ins and outs of like some of the base deep. So when someone says, "Oh, we run a cover 2," everyone just like immediately goes to that like George Edwards, like you remember that George Edwards cover 2, which is just Dick Duran, which is just pretty much like just stay in your zone.
It scares them. Yeah, exactly, and that scares people, because we had such a conservative defense then. And it scares Bills fans, and I think that's why that question comes up for Mr. French. And the conservative nature and that's been associated with Frazier, that scares Bills fans. So I can see why that's come up in the media, in the chat rooms, and on the message boards. It's a good point.
It is. And like you said, I just think it's a different front office and a different coaching staff that's going to be a little bit more aggressive than the old skeleton Dick Duran. So I'm excited to see it. I actually prefer wanting to go back. I'm so over the 3-4 in the NFL. I'm actually interested in going back to this this scheme and seeing what we can do. And believe it or not, Jim Schwartz to me was on his wide 9. He wanted to get after the quarterback, but he's fairly conservative in a lot of his back end coverages. So I'm interested to see what happens with come August. And Justice wants to play a game. Not sure what you mean, Justice. Do you mean like we shouldn't be talking about this before we play? We wouldn't have anything.
Maybe he wants to see video, probably.
You might want to see video, but like, can we not talk about football from December to August? I'm not really, or January to August. I'm not really sure what you mean by play a game. I agree though. Like, I want to see him play. Like, I would love if they played a game right now. like in an hour, Sunday at 1.
Right.
There's stuff to talk about. It's a new coaching staff, and generally here, and most people that follow me know I'm generally swing toward the positive side of things. I'm not paid by the Bills. I'm not paid by John Murphy. I just look at things in a positive light and see what they do well. There's plenty of outlets out there that'll do the opposite. So,
right.
And
I just love the fact that you had mentioned Hyde, because he does bring so much, and that's the versatility angle again. And I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to play in the slot as much as we think right off the bat. Where are you on that?
I've been so back and forth on my opinions on Hyde. I've been jumbled up on like what I've tried to interpret from hearing and reading and seeing. I think he starts and plays most of his time at safety. I mean, I don't know what you feel. I think he could jump down and play nickel, but from what I've been reading, I just think they have a great 3-man rotation, or at least a developing 3-man rotation at the cornerback spot. And I don't see one of them coming off the field at this point. So,
right.
I guess you probably have a little bit better of an insight into like exactly how we do those combo coverages and big nickel, or they like to call it. I mean, I don't see Hyde playing in the slot as much as he did in Green Bay, primarily because of who he drafted in Trey White. And I've said this in my breakdowns and videos. I think Trey White is in nickel situations. I think he'll be the guy that's in the slot. Exactly.
Because we don't have another safety to bring up, to put back
that's
there with Kaiir.
So I don't see big nickel. I don't. So.
I mean, I think Trey White plays a slot a little more in nickel situations, and then we see our boy, Kevon Seymour, maybe, or even Sharice Wright for that matter, play outside. I just think that competition, that nickel competition, is going to be interesting. And where guys play.
You brought up a good name, Sharice Wright, and a lot of people don't know him yet. He's been really productive. Like a year ago, he signed a $25 million deal with Baltimore. He is a guy that was handpicked by Frasier to bring in and sign to a vet 1-year deal, just like we've done in the past with other players like Lorenzo and Zach Brown. Right. Sharice Wright's going to be a top 4 cornerback on this system, 100%, unless he gets hurt or unless he looks terrible in training camp. I can't predict that kind of stuff. I can predict today they're playing for Sharice Wright. He's a top 4 cornerback, could even sneak into the top 3 if he beats out Kevon Seymour. So I think he's a good player to keep an eye on. He can play really, and you've tweeted out stuff about him. So I think that he's one of our pivotal to our defensive schemes.
I mean, he's that tackler. Hold on one second. Let me make sure that sounds off because you guys can't hear it. But he's a really good tackler, and we saw it in this game last year versus Baltimore. And that's he's that guy that can step up and make a tackle, like McDermott loves. So he's not afraid to come up into the box and cut out the legs of Shady McCoy there. It's something that you see a lot on film, but and I know he was, as far as yardage goes, he was torched a lot last year.
He was left a lot alone too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you put the film on with him, and you'll see him on a lot of these formations. This is a 3-by-1 formation, so you got 3 receivers to the top of the screen. You got right down here, manned up, and so he was left on an island a lot, and that's something we know about as Bills fans. And I mean, he made some decent plays on the ball, but he did get torched a lot.
Yeah. Hey, do you have videos of Wright up right now?
Yes, I do. You're not seeing it?
No, I see black screen, so I don't know once if that's just me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me try it one more time.
Okay. But to continue on Wright, like week 1 last year, he basically stopped our running game on his own. Didn't he have like 12 tackles?
Yeah, he was he was completely disrupted. He tore us up, honestly. And a lot of them came in the run game.
There you go.
Are you able to see that?
Yeah, we're good.
Man, I don't understand what the problem is today, but I mean, he had a lot of run stops, and so it's something that he's good at doing, but I would like to see him a little better in coverage.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, can you hear me? My headphones just died too. We're having technical difficulties everywhere.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. But yeah, and kind of back to the film here. It's one of those things. He breaks on the ball really well, and he's pretty good at off coverage. Makes a play here. In right near the numbers, but I think he's the epitome of what you want in, like an off corner, a corner that can move up and press
That was a good
and
break there.
be disruptive near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he broke real well there. Where do you see him, outside
Kevin,
or
are you
inside?
getting any reverb?
Yeah, I have your reverb coming through to me.
All right, let me turn that down a little bit. But we'll move on from the defense there. We'll kind of get towards the end of this and answer a couple more questions. Sorry about the video footage and whatnot, technical issues here. We'll get those ironed out for you. But another question I had was, they had mentioned Rex last season and how he managed his player health and energy levels, and that it always seemed like the players were always tired at the end of the game. Do you think McDermott will stay on top of that this year, Kev?
Yeah, I think he'll stay on top of that. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. I think he's going to rotate, do a lot of different combo coverages. I envision the problems with the Rex as long gone. If we start to see some patterns there, then we can discuss this more in depth. But I think it was, rather than energy levels, these guys are professional athletes. Rather than energy level, I just don't think they cared to play certain things. You can probably elaborate, Eric, on your thoughts, but that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, I think McDermott is he's going to be on top of that, and the thing that he loves to do is rotate players. He likes to bring the whole waves concept, and it's something that he learned from Andy Reid and Jim Johnson in Philly. They want to have a good rotation up front that can attack the quarterback. Exactly. So I think with this scheme, being more friendly, where you can just plug in guys and, hey, go get the quarterback, I think that is something that it plays in our favor that we didn't have with Rex. There was only certain players that could fit in Rex's scheme. So, those guys got considerable minutes and were not, able to come off the field as much as, we had liked.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it comes down to not getting off the field, the scheme not working, people not buying in. There's a couple of factors there. I think it's a legitimate question. If we kept Rex Ryan, I think you could definitely start to dive into this one more.
Definitely is. So another question is, how can this staff alter their zone base to be more effective against Brady? Okay, we kind of covered that. I think to kind of wrap that up from earlier is, Brady tears up zone coverages, and look what he did to Atlanta in the Super Bowl. But I think the good thing about this staff and their experience is there's better scouts in place and better game planning that we can expect. I mean, whether that holds up, we'll see. But I think the scouting, the game planning, the in-game coaching and adjustments, having a head coach that is not calling the plays. I think that type of managerial status is a big thing that'll help out as far as in-game adjustments and managing the game. So what are your thoughts on that, Kev?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you got to make in-game adjustments. That's what we don't do. You can stop them for a quarter, 2 quarters, or even 3 quarters, as you saw. But you need to make in-game adjustments each quarter, if not half. You need to make sure that you're doing things that are changing up. He's seeing different looks. You're getting him down on the ground. You're getting him frustrated. It's the only time you can stop him is when you see him frustrated. You see him yelling at his running back or his receiver. You need to get him frustrated. You need to throw different combo coverages. You need to hide schemes. And he's very good at recognizing stuff. We know he's the best ever. So I think that's all you can do. Bring in different personnel. Try to attack him with someone he's never seen before. Get him on the ground. I mean, it's got to try your best to not just keep showing them and, keep showing him the same looks. And Ryan Mayoshi had another question about Brady. Do you think this is his last year? And do you think that he told Belichick that, and that's why they went all in this offseason?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't buy that it's his last year, unless, I don't know, maybe his wifey, kind of hit the nail on the head and was like, hey, guess what? I'm going to put it out in the limelight, and you need to end your career soon because you've had concussions. I mean, I haven't really dove into that story. I don't know if you have, but I don't think it's his last year.
I don't buy it. I think Tom Brady's not going to be one of those people that go out on top, even like Peyton Manning. I think he plays it out. I mean, I could even see him as a 1-year guy somewhere else too. I think Belichick tries to move on from him at some point in the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think that's me even saying too much, but I do think that you'll see Garoppolo start up for their team at some point. Is it next year? I can't say that. He's playing at too high of a level. Why would you get rid of him? He's playing at way too high of a level. But yeah, it could come soon. I don't think they trade for Brandon Cooks and Coney Ely. and made some other moves and signed Stephon Gilmore just for this year. Could be wrong. Some of them are needed to be re-signed, but I do think that he's playing 2 to 3 years.
I agree with you. Another question, back to the offensive side, is Kobe Listenby. Where are we on him, honestly? Because we know he's got the speed to lift coverages, and he's not even really practicing, right? So I mean, what's his role? I had a question. What's his role? I just don't see. It's hard to say anything besides a deep threat right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most. I think it comes down to the clipboard philosophy. Like, he's the most popular guy in Buffalo for not playing. I'm not really sure what it is. I have hopes that he can come and like try to be the 6th receiver and make the roster. Like, he definitely has that opportunity. I don't think anyone's denying that. I don't know that he has a role in this offense this year. Like, if he comes in and dominates preseason, like, okay, we can start talking about this a little bit more. But the mass optimism around Kobe Listenby, and I'm an optimistic fan and writer and podcaster, but the optimistic approach around Listenby is strange. Like Eric said, I think he's just a deep threat. I mean, can he even run other routes? I'm not sure. Can he even play and be healthy? I'm not sure. So kind of that Goodwin philosophy that hasn't even gotten on the field. At least Goodwin got on the field.
Right. And I think he plays that same role. I think, going back to his film at, TCU, is all you saw were 9 routes, deep routes down the field, deep comebacks. You saw a few, in-breaking routes, but right now, I mean, it's too early to even say if he's going to be on the field anytime soon. I know he looked like he was doing some running or whatnot, and they had some video breakdown that he posted on Twitter. But his role, it's too hard to tell right now. But at the very least, going back to what his film in college, he's gonna be the guy that lifts coverage. He's gonna play that Marquise Goodwin role. But to kind of wrap this up, one final question, and it's a big one. Are we in rebuilding mode?
Not in my opinion. Are we in 11-5 win playoff games mode? I think we're trying to be. I don't know that we are. Are we in rebuilding mode? Nah, I don't see Sean McDermott coming and selling rebuilding mode day one. I think he brought in his guys and people that knew him. I think he sold it as he's able to kind of do a calculated both by trading for next year's first and still filling holes on this roster by saying it's a deep draft, plug in White and Zay Jones. I think you're immediately upgrading your roster this year. I think this roster is better than last year's roster. Do I think that they're rebuilding? Yeah, I mean, every team should be. If you're not winning the Super Bowl, you should be rebuilding. But no, I think you would have saw a few more moves. I think a few more cuts, a few more trades. Eric Wood, you have Richie Incognito. You have some guys that they would have moved, traded, cut. You have, I don't see it, Eric. Maybe you do. I don't know why you'd keep Shady McCoy at that contract level. What do you see something I'm missing?
No, I don't. I don't think we're in rebuild mode. I do think they're playing, both cards. Though I do think they've put together a decent team that can compete and brought in guys that will, come in and fight. But I don't think we have a complete roster yet. I mean, so sure. I don't think we're rebuilding, but I think they thought about the future when they traded away, that pick to get Trey White and get that pick for next year. I think that it was just such a smart play, and it's not a play that we've done a lot of. So I think, they prepared themselves for the future, and this regime, I think, is going to be here for a few years. So it was a good play, top to bottom, as far as offseason has gone, the way it's gone so far. So with that said, we're going to wrap things up here. Again, apologize for the technical issues here. We get those ironed out before we do another one of these. I'll have to take a look at the Google Hangouts settings or something. But if you're looking for your Bills content, of course, you can find us on Twitter at Cover One Bills. You can find Kevin at Kevin Masseri. Of course, our website is cover1.net, and we just installed a new website, so you're gonna have all types of content there. Your normal breakdowns that you see from us, commentary from Kev and stuff like that. So definitely give us a follow there. Another plug is we have a few podcasts on the site. You'll see Bills Fan Podcast. Definitely check them out. Dave's a really good guy and a close friend of mine. And does, good job of covering the Bills in a different way that, that not many sites do. So, and then our Sabres partners, Beyond the Blade podcast, is definitely a podcast to check out. If you like what we do as far as scouting reports and, breaking down players, I'm telling you, these guys, they're on the way up. They cover the Sabres unlike any other website and podcast. So definitely check them out. So Kev, anything else to plug?
I think you got the gamut of it. I think the last thing I had on my docket was I got asked like 4 times this week, and including one today, and then people were liking that tweet, was, do you think Jim Overdorf stays? To end this podcast up and this live chat, no. So I don't. I think that they'll eventually get rid of him sooner rather than later. We'll see what happens as the final staff's completed. But I know a lot of people have asked us that, so I feel like I'll jump in our last topic of discussion, Eric. Do you think Jim Overdorf stays? My opinion is I don't, and if he does make it through, I think it's more of a Whaley situation where he won't be here by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback that. I agree. I just don't see, with the experience and staff that they brought in, I don't see him staying. I mean, if he does, I'm okay with it, because I think they've gone through and done their due diligence. But I think it's you changed everything else from top to bottom. I think you need to wash your hands of him and move on. And hey, bring in someone else. I don't care if he's young. Just bring in someone else. Make it a collaborative effort.
To me, it's
and obviously Brandon's going to have the final say on those contracts. So
exactly. And they said, and and Shane's going to have a lot of say in the contract. So with Shane and Gain, I think you pretty much said no already. You're getting rid of Overdorf. I don't think he might have some cap stuff to go over and have some severance package, but I don't see him through till past January, if at longest to January. So that's our last. I just had that question to me like 5 times this week, so I figured I didn't want to ignore it from people. So
no worries, and thanks for covering that, man. So with that said, until next week, we're gonna try to do this weekly, especially during this lull in the off season. And we'll make things work next time. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.